Hey, everybody, Genny Jam here. Welcome to Between Frets, a space where female musicians meet and discuss all things music. So today we have the founders. Yay! We're doing our Fret Tea Talk today. And our subject is mental health. So this is a great issue. It's pretty much like accepted right now, at least in my day, back in my day. It was seen as like confusing and maybe negative, but it actually isn't. And we're happy that it's actually being embraced, and there's more education about mental health. So yeah, let's get started. I know, Shorn, you talked about hearing it a lot on podcasts and stuff, but we want to also relate this to musicians too. So, in the entertainment field, there are a lot of people that are suffering from mental health and been going to therapy and being vocal about it.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to say this now, and I'm actually going through it now.
Oh.
And I just started this journey like 2 months ago, but it happened since 4 months ago. I was going through a lot of things. It was like after I did my wedding gig or something like that. And until this week, I haven't picked up my guitar in months. And I was figuring out what the hell's going on? What the hell's wrong with me? Like, I've been fighting depression for years, since I was like 14. And now anxiety mixed in between. I think it's because it's probably all the stress on the business side in the music industry, because it really did with all these numbers and everything. And because of those, everybody's now dealing with that with social media, with followers and likes and views and all that stuff. It put so much pressure on me. And I actually took a step back a little bit in music and just focusing more on myself. And right now I'm slowly but in a very good place. Have a rabbit. I've been on therapy for 2 months. Mostly because of that, I was also an emotional eater. I was in an eating disorder because of all that. And thank God I'm losing weight because of this journey. Thank the Lord. But it's a long journey. It's a long progress. It's not just going to disappear, not overnight and stuff like that. But I'm still going through it, and I'm still learning how to deal with all these obstacles that's just coming at my face.
Thanks for sharing that, Shorn.
Yeah, Shorn.
I got nothing to hide. I'm an open book. I might as well just be vulnerable now than till I almost died or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is to be able to have that courage and at least having the support. It helps other people. So other people that are going through something like this can listen to your story and how you're dealing with it. And that's what's so great about like what we're the time that we're living in now, and being able to openly express our feelings in a truthful way, right?
Yeah.
Sure. And that leads to piggyback on what Shorn says. Mental health, or you need help, shows up in many different ways. People think you have to be broken down or be visibly depressed or sad every day. And for some people, they hide it with alcohol. There are people who are alcoholics you never know. Mm-hmm. There are people who are on drugs. And like with Shorn, for me, mine is food. Everyone has their thing. Some people is sex. So, they think they're fine and they're coping, but they have all these different ways of handling it. So people really need to find what their triggers are and what their comfort zones are, their coping mechanisms are. Because, to say you might need a therapist or you might not, you might just need to find, maybe you do need a break from music for a while. Maybe that is your trigger. Maybe that is stressing you out. So don't feel bad to say, okay, I may have to take a step away for a few months. You know, some people during COVID, during the lockdown last year, found out that they found new hobbies that they liked, that brought them joy. So don't ever be afraid or feel forced that you have to stay in something, because people change and you grow and you out, like Michelle Obama said, always becoming. You don't have to always be. So just know that you can always grow and change and move, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. Um, Shorn, I wanted to ask you, just so you can let our listeners know, like, when did you realize, well, you knew that you said it's been going on for several years. But when did you make that move, when you finally decided, you know what, I'm going to take a break, or I'm going to, get in touch with a therapist? When, how was that feeling?
It happened 2 months ago, and I went to see my doctor for my follow-up appointment. And when I was looking and got my weight checked and everything, sometimes my weight goes up, sometimes it go down, and I'm in like a freaking plateau. He figured out what was going on, and he said, "Oh, you haven't been to counseling yet?" I was like, "No." So it was kind of a wake-up call for me. Not only the weight, but when he told me that you really need to go see counseling and figure out what is holding you, all these feelings that making you have a weight plateau. So after I left my doctor, I was searching for therapists for my insurance. And he also suggested me being in OA, Overeaters Anonymous. And I didn't know that exists. I thought it was jokes, but actually been to one meeting, and so far it's just like dealing with those 12 steps with the alcoholism and everything. That's like the same process with that. But the only thing I had to do is changing my diet. And I'm just now going back journaling again, and I'm crocheting again because my stress was all combined and all to that. But it happened like 2 months ago, and so far the journey is a slow start, but I'm getting there. So
That's great.
That's wonderful.
It is. Did you feel any way about getting a therapist, or when your doctor suggested, you were like, okay, I'm going to do it?
Well, I've been dodging off that bullet from the past few visits from my doctor, and me, as mostly stereotypically as Black women, we don't need therapy.
Exactly.
Because we're already strong enough and trying to hide our feelings just to making sure everybody else is okay. Mm-hmm. And I think because of me as a mom, I was like, I don't want to see my kids see me in this predicament, like me crying or not being, social. But once I did the therapy, and even my boyfriend suggested that to me as well, of being in the therapy, because he doesn't even know what the hell was wrong with me.
That's big for a Black man to even bring that up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There has been a stigma, especially people of color, for a long time, that if you show any anxiety or depression or stress, it's negative. It's looked at as you're a weak person, get yourself together. And you're pushed off to the side like you can't handle life, and you just look down at it, and it makes you feel worse. For me, for the last year, and I could say this to you ladies, I've gone through a lot of stress because I was overworking myself, and I crashed and burned. I had about 50 students. I'm a guitar instructor and a guitarist in a few outfits. And that alone is a lot to perform and be prepared and gig, even during COVID. But I had over 50 students from ages 5 to 93, teaching piano, teaching bass, teaching guitar, classical guitar, acoustic guitar, ukulele. And I burnt out. I couldn't even do anything at home. I couldn't go to the gym. And I just fizzled out. I felt so burnt out that what I had to do, what it is I cannot, for myself, I can't address anything unless I identify it and recognize it. And when I realized, oh my goodness, everything was falling by the wayside, and I mean, I just couldn't keep it together. I felt like I was walking with two left shoes and stumbling no matter what. I just couldn't get it together. And I sat down with myself and I had a come to Jesus moment with my God, and I prayed, and I realized you're doing way too much. What I was doing, whatever my issue was at the time, if it was depression or anxiety, mainly anxiety, I was overworking myself to compensate for the anxiety, to feel better from the anxiety. Keep working, keep working. And it wasn't about money. It was about stay busy until I crashed and burned. And I could not keep it together. I couldn't keep a schedule together. I didn't know if I was coming or going. I was upset a lot. I was angry until I said, you know what, Karen, Autumn, cut things out. Start drawing a line through people that are bad in your life, too much work. So right now, I'm currently just starting after the week of Christmas. I'm just teaching remotely. I'm driving 100 miles a day to work. It was too much. The driving, the late nights, the teaching, and then gigging and traveling. It was just way too much. And for the last year, I just couldn't do it until, and I spoke to my doctor, and I spoke to people in my family and my closest friends. And I even mentioned to you ladies last year, I just couldn't keep it together. I just broke down and I said, ladies, I can't even do to work with Fred Sisters because of the turmoil I had created for myself, because I didn't realize what was happening. If I'm suffering from anxiety, then okay, work more, be better, do this, do that. And it snowballed and I crashed and burned. Fortunately, I didn't end up in a hospital, but I did finally start reaching out. I would mention it with tears to my closest family members. They'll say, you all right? You know, I had lost weight actually, and not intended to, but it was because I was just became a workaholic to compensate for how I was feeling. Maybe if I work more, if I play more, I'll feel better. And it does not work. And I did speak to my doctors. I did pray, and I spoke to my close friends. And I talked to you ladies briefly about, listen, ladies, I'm going through something. I didn't go through too much detail. There was other personal things going on in my life, but it's like you're trying to juggle 8 balls and you can't catch all of them. And I'm just starting to get better. And I became aware. I'm like, what is going on? I had headaches. I had insomnia. I wasn't even going to sleep, but I was going back to work, working 8-9 hours, coming back, practicing, and not sleeping, which is just awful. Then my diet I was eating 1 meal a day, maybe, not even staying hydrated. So that was I was just really just imploding. And then I realized, you know what, you're getting sick. You have headaches, you're not sleeping. You can't keep up with all your appointments. You're teaching, it's nonstop. And then you start feeling resentful and of yourself. You're angry. The anger turned inward to myself. And I said, okay, I have to sit down. And I prayed and I prayed and I said, I have to speak to someone. So again, the best thing for me and others, if you trust your closest friends or your family member or your significant other, if you have a place of worship, go speak to your pastor. Definitely speak to your doctors and get help right away before you end up in the hospital or end up in jail or lose everything you have. So I had that. And right now, because I'm here in between South Carolina and New York, I was going to go back to New York, and I went there and I said, this isn't even going to make it better. I'm here in South Carolina, and now as of Christmas, I'm starting my to relocate to the great state of California, and I'm going to be back in school. Oh, by the way, I was in school too at Berkeley, so school, work, family, and I just couldn't keep up, and everything just dropped on the floor, and I just sat down and I have my pets, and they became ill. It was just never ending. And I felt like I could not even walk the straight line. And I realized it's myself, it's me. And it takes a while to identify the issue. You think it's other things. Oh, I'm working too hard, or oh, this person's doing this, or too much school, too much. No, you create. Sometimes you create your situation and your choices. Then again, if there's something internal, we have to identify it, and don't be ashamed, but reach out to your loved ones. Again, your pastor, your medical providers, your doctor, and who you trust. Because a lot of times we don't trust. We're like, I don't know if I should say this to my job. They may fire me. I don't want to say this to my doctor. He may put me on medication. I may not say this to my loved one. They may leave me. So there's a fear too. And that's something that is, especially with African-American and people of color, that they've been shunned. If something was wrong with you, you will look down. You're a failure. You're awful. You're stupid. You can't keep it together. And then you push to the side. That's indicative of a lot of families, even today. But today, I can also say that it's more accepted to come out and say, I have an issue and I have a problem. I need help. And so the celebrities and the sports athletes, they're coming out and they're saying, hey, I need help. And it's not like, you're a waste, you're a failure. It's like, it's embraced. And that's what we need now, is more love and acceptance, because it does happen to us all. And what happens also, add some stress to it. And there you go, boom. Mm-hmm. And so that's it.
Yeah, I mean, just like everything that you pointed out is so on point. But even, even a little bit of what I'm going through, but mm-hmm. Even the athletes, the thing mm-hmm. about when the athletes came out, you realize, oh my gosh, even like the number one icon out there, the legends out there, they have mm-hmm. issues.
Sure.
And they're really they probably had issues back then, but never showed it, And so they were dealing with those issues and even like considering suicide and everything. Mm-hmm. But now they're coming out and saying it. And you're like, oh my gosh, they are dealing with the same things I'm dealing with, that kind of thing, And so it's opened a whole bunch of doors to like people to be able to educate, mm-hmm. and say, yeah, this isn't bad. I mean, exactly what you said, people of color, women of color, mm-hmm. are seen as strong and, mm-hmm. You don't want to see you're a mother, you have children, you don't want them to see your pain. That's just exactly like mine. And I learned that from my mom. Mm-hmm. My mom went through hell with my dad and a divorce and beatings and everything, but I would never see her cry. So she was always strong. And I never knew what happened with her life. Even after the divorce, when she had to take us, because my dad didn't want us, she had to take us down to DC from Jersey. And I never saw any pain in her eyes, but we were like, I could say I was a problem child, and I'm thinking, damn, I was such a pain to my mom. And she was dealing with four children, you know what I mean? And having to take 2-3 jobs to try to support us. And, she never showed it at all. And so I always thought like, yeah, I'm going to be strong as a rock. Like, I won't let my kids see me cry. I won't let my kids, see me, upset, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's tough, man. But, I like that, we're talking about this and we're kind of, letting our, being vulnerable, right?
That's the point of it. When you look on social media, especially for the women, you see everyone has the great lighting, the great clothes. They're doing the killer riffs. They have so many followers, like Shorn said, and you may be struggling that day. You may be struggling with a song. You get on there and you're just that just adds to the pressure. And like you say, like so many celebrities, like Shorn mentioned, Tamar Braxton has Under Construction. Taraji P. Henson has something on Facebook, a mental health podcast or series. And as much negatives as there are, or stress or triggers on social media, sometimes you have to search out the good on social media, because everyone, there are transparent people saying, hey, this is all smoke and mirrors. I have stuff going on too. And that may lift you for that day to know, okay, hey, I'm not the only one out here. Because sometimes you do feel like you're alone on an island,
With the musicians, and social media, I think that social media kind of hurt us a lot, because, and I think it created more anxiety, especially with like the pandemic happening to us last year, it kind of created more, like people did start shining, I guess, through social media during the pandemic. At least I've seen that, like with some of the people that I knew personally and followed, like all of a sudden they're like, 100K followers now, whatever they're doing and whatever. But that's still, it's like, and then you got those people that are just like, they have to live to get those likes, get those follows, get those comments, and stuff like that. People trolling and everything. So social media doesn't help. So hopefully, like, maybe like, don't look at it as like real life,
Take a break, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
I do that like a few times a year. Just tap out.
Mm-hmm.
Those who really look after you or miss you, they'll DM you like, hey, okay?
Mm-hmm. What I wanted to ask about too was coping skills, because in my, just like when I grew up and like how I grew up and with my family, because they're Spanish, and again, like the women, they were seen as like the men were more like in charge. I mean, I kind of feel like it's like that and everything, but in the culture that my family's from, the men really took charge, and the women were, what's the word? I can't remember it, but
were they more submissive?
Submissive. That's it. Submissive. Yes. The women in Ecuador were more submissive, where the man would like take charge, but he would be the home provider, the house beater, the one that beats the wife and the one that cheats on the wife and has mistresses. I mean, that's like the culture. It's probably still happening like that. I don't know. Shout out to Ecuador, though. I love you. but seeing that growing up, and then having to like go through, my depression time, my thing, but I never, even growing up, like for some reason, I was able to cope with it. But there were times, not that I had suicide thoughts, but there were times where I was like, I don't want to live. I wish I could not wake up anymore. Those times, when I went through my divorce, but I never thought I'm going to take my life. But I did always think, I wish I can go to sleep and never wake up, like that kind of thing, just so I won't have to deal with, all that pressure. But, I know that currently, like even when I look at my kids and stuff, like sometimes they had issues. They go to therapists and they're very open about it. And, but they had coping issues where I'm just like, you can, don't think like that. Like, think like this, because I guess the way I cope. But how do you all feel about that? Like with coping skills and everything?
Well, coping can be positive and negative. You have to find the positive. Like for me, like what Shorn said, mine is food. It's like emotional eater. That's not a good thing. That's a coping thing. But during the pandemic, I actually found out how much journaling helps, in actual drawing, sketching. That helps relax so much. And by the time, like, hey, I didn't think about going and get a Big Mac all day. Like, you know what I mean? It's definitely, you have to find what works for you. And like what Karen said, some people, like when she said she was trying to move back to New York, that stuck out with me. She might be moving back. And she said, I found out that wasn't it. So some people, like, they try to regress thinking that was better. But then when you were in that time, that wasn't the best either. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think coping, you have to think, coping, I don't know if that's necessarily a good word. Coping, you're just like, I'm just going to deal with it. That's what comes to my mind when I think about coping.
Yeah, I think the way that I did it was I would just keep working. Like in order for me to cope with any issues, as long as I don't have to think about it, then I'm good. So I would always indulge myself in work or music. So,
Exactly what I was saying, Jenny. When I was saying that I was overworked, I became a workaholic to cope with, or to just not think about, well, do I have an issue? Let me work more. Maybe that'll be it. Coping style can be overeating or overworking or over-exercising or doing something to not even deal with what's really going on. Some people can do drugs or drink, whatever can mask it. That's what we do. We have to identify, wait a minute, am I working too much because I like it, or I'm doing it because I'm hurting?
mhm.
And let me just, I want to touch about the social media. You look at social media and people show their brand new Mercedes or their big new house, or they're going to go on tour and they got all this. And sometimes it can make you feel like, gee, during the lockdown, all I could do is just survive. And these people are doing so great, when actually it's not really true. They're just showing you a shiny car, or they may have a beautiful gig, or they got endorsed by a new instrument. But if you keep, looking at that, you will start to feel less of yourself because, oh, everybody else is doing well. What about me? Why can't I do that? So it's a lot of us compare ourselves to social media, which half the time is not even true.
Mhm. So we have about 7 minutes left. Shorn, did you have anything you wanted to talk about, or maybe add to the coping subject?
Yeah, I think what Lacole was saying about coping is about, another word for it is managing. And I think when you're trying to manage the situation by, yes, eating, you gotta have food. They don't say anything. They just like to put stuff in your mouth. Then most people, sex addicts, they want to sex it away, which is not going to go away. But yeah, I think we got to use those things to hide it, but a lot of people don't want to know what was going on with us underneath these issues. But yes, when we go to see a therapist or a doctor, they actually know what the root of the issue, or why are you eating so much? Why are you working so much? Why are you having sex a lot? Why are you drinking a lot? Why are you taking drugs? And based on what they see on the numbers from the blood work or weight or anything like that, they know these things. If you don't go see somebody or vent out these issues, everything that you have that is causing the problem, it is still going to be buried deep and deep and deep. And it's going to be much harder. It's going to be much harder to get everything out and how to work on these root of the issues of why are you doing it. So in my personal opinion, if you don't talk it out or vent it out or anything that work on these root of those issues, your the stuff that you're coping with is going to get much worse.
Yeah, agree. So this is great. I want to mention the Fret sisters here. We have Shorny Shorn Marshall. We have Lacole Rose, and we have Autumn Rose, and I'm Genny Jam. And we want to mention the podcasts that you were talking about, or like any resources that we can quickly mention. I can put these in the show notes also.
I don't know if she had a new season of that yet, but if you can go check out Tamar Braxton's Under Construction. That's kind of like a good one of the sources. Or if those that having emotional eaters to cope with, there is a thing called Overeaters Anonymous. They do virtual meetings, so make sure you look up with that, and also check your insurance, see if your insurance cover therapists. They do online therapy. You don't have to leave the house or go to their office. Things are now virtual. So that's kind of like one of the good sources there. Or talk to a close family, a family member that you're close with, or a close friend, or if you're married, spouse, they have the right to know things. Or Or what Karen said about speaking to a pastor.
Also, I'm going to mention and close for my closing is if you're alone and you have no one to reach out to, or you feel that you may want to end it all, please call the suicide hotline and speak to them at 1-800-273-8255 and just call and reach out, and this may save your life.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to put our Instagrams on our show notes for everybody here. If anybody wants to message us, or even our Fret Sisters, you can also email us or get on our DM at Fret Sisters, Fret Sisters for Instagram and Facebook, and Fret Sisters Music at gmail.com for an email. But I also have our personal emails, if anybody wants to reach out to any of us. If anybody has a story to tell, we can get you on too, have an episode.
Sometimes people are lonely too. And that can cause, even if they don't have a pre-existing condition of anxiety, depression, or any kind of sadness, but being alone and being isolated, especially from the pandemic. And even now, let's people please reach out to someone, even reach out to Fret Sisters.
Yeah, reach out to us.
Reach out to us.
All right. So this is great. Thank you again, y'all, for taking the time for us to get together. I love it when we all get together. We need to do this more. Okay.
Sure. Definitely.
All right. From the Fret Sisters, we love you. And well, we're at the time with the holidays. So happy holidays. Hope you have a great new year, 2022. Yeah, we'll be back.
That's right.
Don't drink too much.
Yeah, don't drink too much. Bye.
Have fun. Peace and love, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.